evening, everyone, and welcome to our speaker series, Hope and Possibilities. My name is Madeline, and I will be your moderator this evening. I'm joined by our panel here, Amanda, Rhonda, and Erin. We're all very excited to be here with you this evening. Our panelists are a few of our amazing volunteers from the Peer Talk program at Hope and Me MDAO. They've worked very hard to write and practice presentations that will share their stories and lived experiences with mental health. Hope and Me's Peer Talk Speakers Bureau is a unique volunteer-led speaker series designed to reduce the stigma and fear surrounding mental illness. Peer Talk speakers share open and candid lived experience of how mental illness has affected their lives and the lives of their loved ones. We're proud to hold this space to help educate and inspire audiences and put a face on the realities of living with mental illness and finding hope and recovery. I'm grateful that we can share this virtual space tonight, and I hope that you leave feeling inspired. All right, and with that, it is my pleasure to kick off the speeches and introduce our first speaker of the evening, Rhonda. Rhonda is excited to be turning 50 soon and is always happy to share her life experience. For Rhonda, it is important to inspire anyone and everyone to carve out a life for themselves, no matter what. She lives with DID, complex PTSD, anxiety, and chronic depression. The title of Rhonda's speech tonight is Carving Out a Life. Over to you, Rhonda.
Thank you, Madeline. Hello. My goal is to inspire people to carve out a life for themselves no matter what. I share my story not for comparison, rather as an example of a life lived so far. I was born into a generationally traumatized family. My single mother was a mentally challenged prostitute and an alcoholic. She lived on the streets of Toronto since the age of 10. My dad was a pimp on Yonge Street in the 70s. This left me a feral child. I know there are a lot of us. We meet up in our years trying to sort out how to be a healthy individual who can put a life together for ourselves regardless of our fractured upbringing. We either cause trouble and do some damage in our lives, or meet up and do some good, or a bit of both. There is so much I had to figure out for myself. For example, washing my hands after using the bathroom. I learned this when I went to kindergarten at age 5. I won't list all I've had to learn on my own because I feel this example speaks for itself. I will say I learned a lot of what not to do from my family and their friends. I did not know the word instinct when I was a young child, but I definitely had one, since there were things happening that just didn't sit well with me. For these reasons, I became incredibly observant. I watched how other children and teens did things, and later how adults conducted their days around work, family and friends, pets, and self-care. I would observe even the simplest things, like how a person blew their nose. In my younger years, I had to observe to know how I should be, to not draw any attention to myself. I was desperate to live with the illusion that everything was all right, and so was I. After all, no one had come to my rescue yet. I am not Cinderella, and this is not a Cinderella story. My brain was working overtime with the reality being no one and nowhere is safe. As an adult, I observed to practice being present in the reality I was creating for myself, because then I could exercise my power as an adult. And that is where all the possibilities lied for me. This was my truth as a child living and growing. One day, this isn't going to be my day. and I will get to choose who and what gets to be part of my day. I held on to that every day so much in order to survive that I didn't even realize I had become an adult. That was picking some of the same stuff from my childhood to be in my adult life because I lived as the victim I once was. I live with dissociative identity disorder, complex PTSD, anxiety, and chronic depression. At any moment, I can be triggered by a sound, smell, sensation, or a flashback from my past and be back into a traumatic moment or experience and react and respond from that place and time, rather than from my current reality. I was helpless and powerless then, but not now. I am powerful, and my power comes from being present as me right here, right now. I know many of you can relate to this because we all still have our younger selves very much alive within us. They are the parts of us who do not want to do chores, exercise, and eat healthy. These things were never a part of my childhood, and kids like to stick with what is familiar because it gives them comfort. For you, the things your younger self wants and doesn't want to do may be different. My younger self is in 13 parts and at definitive ages and stages that do not grow because I have DID. I do my very best to give them the love and nurturing they did not receive. As an adult, I have that power and I have earned their trust. I want to share some of the things I've learned that have helped me carve out this life I have and enjoy now. Every day and everywhere I am, I ask myself 3 questions. How am I doing? What do I need? What can I do to meet my need? Sometimes the thing I can do to meet my need is seek outside help. This has resulted in me seeking a therapist, a psychiatrist, support from my family doctor, medication for my mood disorders because my brain pathways were forever changed due to the overwhelming trauma, and group therapy, various therapy programs offered at the YWCA, Women's College, and the Barbara Schleifer Clinic. Some of it was pretty intense, but never as bad as the actual trauma. I also set many boundaries and cut out family members and friends. I took a 4-year break from talking and spending time with my mother. This is in order to keep myself moving forward while remaining present in the moment and reality that is now. I work for myself, by myself. This is the only way my work environment is at a manageable stress level for me. I have a small hair salon, and I know all the people coming into my salon. I have known them more than 10 and some more than 25 years. I spent many years being hyper anxious and stressed while building my business. Instinct always kicked in to help me navigate, and I ignored it a lot. With therapy, I've made my voice the loudest voice for me, and I trust myself 100%. It took me a very long time to be this present. And one of the things that helped me the most are the 3 questions. How am I doing? What do I need? And what can I do? I learned that no one has authority over me unless I give it to them. It is important to recognize the bully or abuser anytime and everywhere it pops up, even over the phone, but especially in my own head. I would never talk to another person the way the bully/abuser who talks to me in my head. The truth is, this is not my voice and never has been. This voice is the bully/abuser I grew up with. I shut it down all the time, especially now because nothing it says is true. I know a lot of us have this recording that aims to diminish us as we are now. May I remind you to give yourself credit. You are here. You are doing something good for yourself simply by showing up for yourself and listening. Thank you.
Wow, amazing, Rhonda. Thank you so much for that beautiful and inspiring speech, and the wisdom that you kind of have learned along the way in your journey and your story. I really love those three questions. I think they serve as a great reminder for so many of us. How am I doing today? What do I need, and how can I meet those needs? Um, and and it's so, I just want to honor that one amazing line where you say, I trust myself 100%. Wow, that's really powerful. Congratulations. And congratulations on a great speech for us.
Thank you.
And next, our second speaker of the evening is Erin. Erin is a registered nurse working in the mental health and substance use field. Erin's experience with depression and anxiety began during her teenage years and has persisted throughout her life. Ultimately, Erin's experience with mental health has impacted most, if not all, of her life choices, including her career path. Erin is passionate about eliminating mental health related stigma, creating safe spaces, and making mental health care equitably available for all. She hopes that by sharing her experiences, Erin can advocate for change and make people feel comfortable talking about mental health. Erin's speech is titled Sticks and Stones. We're looking forward to hearing from you, Erin.
Thanks, Madeline. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. I can't remember which person told me this phrase first, whether it was my parents or a teacher, but from early childhood to early adulthood, the saying had stuck with me. This nursery rhyme was told to me personally to encourage resilience, to use as a retort for name-calling or bullies, and as a reminder that I should remain calm even when facing adversity. It wasn't until just recently when I heard the sticks and stones saying used in a movie that I was struck by how inaccurate I think the phrase is. In my experience, words can and do hurt, often much more than sticks or stones. While sticks and stones may break bones, words can disadvantage people, cause cycles of negative self-talk or self-destruction, and ultimately break the soul. In this speech, I'm going to talk about my own mental health journey, during which I have used words to both disempower and re-empower myself. I will discuss how language related to mental health is capable of both harming and healing. Finally, I'll present a strategy each of us can incorporate into our daily lives to take back the power of words and hopefully improve our mental health. My journey with mental illness began as I transitioned into high school. I have always felt a need to be in control, so moving to a new school environment with a whole bunch of new people made me feel nervous and uncomfortable. The change in school was also coupled with other typical teenage problems like evolving relationships and a changing body. Eventually, my self-esteem crumbled and my perceived lack of control became too much. I turned all of my uneasiness and discomfort inwards, falsely convinced that if I gained control over all aspects of myself and became the perfect version of me, then magically and everything else would fall into place. This way of thinking did not work out as planned. By the end of my first year of high school, the only thing I accomplished was adding another factor to my growing list of things beyond my control. I had developed unmanageable, debilitating anxiety and chronic depression. But just like most teenagers, on top of my need to be perfect and in control was being self-conscious. I felt like I needed to keep everything inside. I wanted everyone to believe I was handling all of life's stresses with ease, like I was effortlessly treading and keeping my head above water, when in reality, I felt like I was drowning. I lived in a constant cycle of internalized name-calling, self-criticism, and comparisons to others. I became programmed to use negative words to describe myself and the situations I faced, as well as the world around me. My stream of consciousness became a broken record, drilling damaging thoughts into my head on a relentless loop. On top of my negative thoughts about myself, were my beliefs about mental illness. At the time, my only exposure to mental health and mental illness was in the media. I saw celebrities having breakdowns and movies depicting people living with mental illness as dangerous, unpredictable, and scary. I took the inaccurate, misleading representations of mental illness I witnessed in the media and directed them inwards as well. The inappropriate terminology used in inaccurate descriptions of mental illness in the media made me worried that having a mental illness would make people consider me as different or damaged, and that anyone who viewed me as different would end up treating me poorly. My thoughts often became so overwhelming, I wished I could shut my brain off permanently. But even louder than my thoughts was my fear. My fear that if I was honest about my mental health, I would be ostracized, ridiculed, and shamed. I felt trapped by my own words and unable to ask for help. What I didn't realize as a teenager was that while words can hurt, they may also heal. Words are incredibly powerful. Our words direct our thoughts, which then influence our attitudes and behaviors. The influence of our language can be positive or negative, depending on the words we choose and the meaning behind them. I'm thankful to have learned this lesson on my very first therapy visit. For many people, like myself, mental illness has a tendency to make us view ourselves and the world in a negative light. When I began therapy for my anxiety and depression, I had to make a conscious choice to use positive words. It took intentional effort for me to realize that when I hear the negative voices in my head, I have the power to turn things around. Which leads me to the strategy I would like to suggest today. It's something I still practice daily and focuses on self-compassion. We can practice self-compassion by choosing kind words when talking to ourselves. Self-compassion can increase resilience, help us heal from negative memories, change potentially negative core beliefs, and make us feel empowered. Self-compassion is especially helpful for people who have a loud, harsh inner critic, like myself. The specific practice that I do is called the answering machine. As a person born in the late 90s, I've only witnessed one physical answering machine. But for any of you who haven't seen an answering machine, have no fear, the activity is fairly straightforward. To do this practice, I encourage you to leave yourself a message on your internal answering machine. You know it's time to hit record when you're experiencing a moment of stress or are feeling especially self-critical. Allow yourself to say every potentially negative thought, uncomfortable feeling, or harmful word. Don't censor yourself. Once you're finished recording, click delete and discard that internal message. Let go of all of those words or ideas. The second part of this exercise is to leave yourself a replacement message that more accurately explains how you feel and uses more positive words. When I first started using this activity, leaving myself a positive message felt impossible. A tip is to pretend you're leaving the positive message for a close friend rather than yourself, because oftentimes the harsh words we use to describe ourselves, we would never say to someone we care about. Eventually, the more you practice the answering machine activity, the easier it will be to leave yourself positive messages. In time, your positive words will start to become more positive, compassionate thoughts and attitudes towards yourself. It may take some time to notice a change. With practice, your choice of language will not only affect how you view yourself, but also how you perceive the world around you. The answering machine activity can be a helpful strategy to begin practicing self-compassion. When combined with other practices to support your mental health, such as therapy, medication, or relying on your social support systems, it can lift your mood, help you build a positive frame of mind, and be a support in your mental health toolkit. Words have power much greater than sticks or stones. Words have the ability to inflict harm, especially when talking about mental health and mental illness. But words can also be used to create change, foster hope, and make people feel empowered. Let's choose our words wisely and use language as a tool rather than a weapon. Even if sticks and stones break my bones, my words will be there to help and heal me. And my hope is that words can do the same for all of you. Thank you very much.
Amazing job, Erin. Thank you so much. I loved how you talked about, well, I think what you shared about negative thoughts and stigma, both society, stigma in society and self-stigma are all too familiar and relatable for so many people who've experienced different challenges with mental health. But I loved how you talked about awareness, self-compassion, and of course the voice message system as an antidote for combating that and managing anxiety and the negative self-talk. That's a great tip. I remember the answering machines. I hope if anyone sees this and they don't know what that is, it'll be a fun Google for them to see how technology truly has developed. And our wellness strategies developed too, right? Thank you. And finally, we're going to hear our last speech tonight from Amanda. Amanda is committed to lifelong learning and sharing what she has learned through education and her lived experience with bipolar disorder and obsessive compulsive disorder. She has a BN, MN in nursing and is currently completing her Master's of Science in Global Mental Health by writing a dissertation on the disclosure of mental illness by healthcare professionals. Through Peer Talk, she is excited to share her journey and continue to learn from those around her. The title of Amanda's speech is I've Done Hard Things, I Can Do Hard Things. Take it away, Amanda.
Thank you, Madeline. Okay, so picture this, a 20-something young lady wearing an orange dress, bright pink coat, mismatched socks and shoes on her way to her regularly scheduled psychiatrist appointment. Now, for context, I historically wear matching shoes and muted colors, so this is quite dramatic for me. My psychiatrist takes one look at me and starts in on an assessment focusing ever so slightly on my potential manic state. I'm confused by his questioning, thinking that I'm just having what feels to be just a fantastic day and nothing to be concerned about. He, on the other hand, has differing opinions. I leave the appointment, prescription in hand, walking joyfully down the street. And now you wonder, how did I get from this delightfully happy and unaware 20-something to this productive, stable, engaged, and still somewhat lacking insight woman approaching 40? Today, I will walk you through my journey as I discuss what both mania and depression feel like in my body and how I turn these experiences into the need to find stability through recovery. Now, me walking joyfully down the street in brightly colored outfits is exactly what I wished mania or hypomania was always like. Just rose-colored glasses and a sunshiny affect. But the reality for myself was that it tended to transition into irritation and anger. I describe it as my cells moving faster than my body and the sensation of my skin crawling with unexpressed energy. Just all the time. So not the most fun I've ever had. Depression, that is, in contrast, is much slower for me. Everything is slower. My movements, my thoughts, everything just slowed right down. This can be difficult as I would be slowly experiencing emotions and would end up sitting in the metaphorical dark for hours as I transitioned my way through negative thoughts and emotions. Now these cycles happened for years while I was undiagnosed and for years after my diagnosis of bipolar disorder. Sometimes it would be weeks in between and sometimes just hours in between cycles. To be honest, I was exhausted. But when the clouds or rainbows parted ways for a mildly cloudy blue sky and the dust settling around me, I was able to catch my breath and truly sit in what I was learning to be stable emotions. Now, for me, stable emotions were the hardest thing to obtain. I flirted with them frequently throughout my recovery. The tricky part was staying in stability. This was for a lot of reasons. First, stability doesn't feel as great as the beginning of mania does. I longed for those days of unbridled energy and optimism, but they felt just so much better than wallowing in the depressive thoughts and slow movements. So we power through. Stable Amanda, the one on long-term disability who was much too sick to go back to work as an emergency room nurse, but well enough to engage in the community, looked at recovery as her full-time job. I saw recovery as an essential part of my journey and the missing piece to the wellness puzzle I was learning I was putting together, each piece representing a required element. I was struggling to find my place in the recovery world of mental health. I, at times, did not find it supportive of healthcare professionals engaging in their own personal recovery. But I was determined that my people existed and that I just needed to keep looking. A friend of mine and I found a poster for Laughing Like Crazy Show, a comedy troupe dedicated to exploring the recovery and mental health experiences through comedy, an event that took place at the supermarket in Kensington, and we decided to go. Halfway through the set, my friend looks at me and said, "I think we found your people." And boy, was she right. I looked into the organization putting on the event at that time called MDAO, Now Hope in Me, and I thought that this maybe, just maybe, is where I find my community. I started to dip my toe in recovery-based programming. I started with WRAP, the Wellness Recovery Action Plan, where I focused on individual tools that I could use throughout my illness spectrum. And while I still think in terms of WRAP lingo, like who knew we needed a crisis plan, the peers that I met, including my own multidisciplinary team, making friends with a pharmacist and social worker just as soon as I arrived, made me immediately feel welcome, and they're still an important part of my recovery team. And while this may not be for everyone, I love school and was acutely aware of the impact of having gaps on my resume for when I was applying for jobs in this new life I was creating for myself. So what does a keen student do with limited resources? They embrace emerging technology, the massive open online courses, or a MOOC as they're now called. My preferred platform was Coursera, and with that, I jumped in, finishing one course at a time, at my own pace, and for free, giving me a sense of accomplishment and something that I could add to this ever-daunting post-recovery resume. In the 10 years since I started with Coursera, I've probably taken approximately 60 courses, and this was an essential part of my recovery, finding a way to be successful at something beyond the basics, but difficult in their own right, of getting up, of eating, of maintaining a stable mood. They gave me the confidence of continually pushing myself to try harder and bigger things, empowering me with the tools to return to work and my full-time stable life. All the while I was doing these courses, I attended weekly peer groups at MDAO. Shout out to the women's group, the bipolar group, and the youth group that got me through those lonely weeks in recovery. Some days I would talk, some days I would listen, some days I would cry, but I always found a sense of community, and where my friends and family wanted to but couldn't understand what I was going through, I always found like-minded people who were engaged in their own process, but always here to help and support a recovery beginner like myself. And as I continued in these groups, I became one of those veterans that I looked up to at the beginning and was able to see the benefits of sharing and receiving support from individuals with similar experiences. And with a vanilla latte in hand as my safety blanket, I slowly entered the world of peer support with recovery-minded peers. Now, recovery is not something that's talked about in my psychiatry or psychology appointments. We talk about stability, balance, occupational functioning, but true recovery was found in those peer groups. Not to say I don't love my team. I'm the luckiest little duck, as I've been with my psychiatrist for 13 years and see him just as often as I need, sometimes twice a week, mostly once a month, but knowing he's just a phone call away is a true luxury. I've also been seeing my psychologist for 10 plus years. She knows all my history, all my stories, and has been there from days where I couldn't get out of bed to the days where I'm graduating with my master's degree in nursing. She's walked me through trauma to the other side and helped me live a life that I could only have imagined a few years ago. And my team doesn't end there. I have family, friends, peers, a life coach, a supportive boyfriend. I no longer hide my bipolar diagnosis. It is part of me, and I'm proud to wear that label. It means that I have earned every good day. I have, and that has seen the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And every day, even when it felt impossible, I chose to stay and continue to fight. But it would not be possible without my experiences in recovery-based programming. So I encourage you to find your team. And if you need the first member of your own team, call up Hope and me, and their team of peers are ready to be drafted. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Wow, great job, Amanda. Thank you so much for that shout out for peer support and the programs we do at Hope and Me. I included actually for everyone in the chat a link to our website, to the page that shares some more information on our drop-in peer support groups for anyone who's interested in checking that out. But Amanda, you mentioned so many great things in that speech that really, I think, get to the heart of the magic that happens in peer support. Is saying that that's where the real recovery happens with the group of peers, and sharing and receiving support and being determined to find your people. It's so amazing to hear just how hard you worked throughout your entire recovery journey and the different things you tried. And I'm so happy that you were able to find your people. And wow, it's just so inspiring to hear how you dove into all of those courses and really, stealing a line from Rhonda, carved out a beautiful life for yourself. So thank you for sharing a fantastic speech tonight. And wow, yeah, incredible job, everyone. I want to say a big thank you to all three of our speakers. And thank you for your bravery to really open up and share speeches like this in this platform. It's not easy, and it doesn't always happen publicly with strangers, let alone kind of even in our personal lives with some of the people we know closest. So that's really what the Peer Talk program is all about, and you did a great job representing us tonight. All right, and now we're going to move into our Q&A period. So if anyone in the audience has questions for the whole panel or one speaker in particular, you can type the question in using the Q&A feature. So there's a Q&A button you see at the bottom of your screen, and type in your question there, and we'll be happy to take some time to answer those. And while I am waiting, I am going to maybe get us warmed up with a few questions while people are finding the Q&A and thinking about what they want to ask and typing that in. So one for everyone. I'm wondering if any of you have tips or suggestions for people who are listening tonight and just feel like the speeches have really resonated with them and they feel inspired to maybe reach out to someone for the first time and talk about how their mental health is impacting them. It can be a really scary thing to do. And I'm just wondering if any of you have tips or suggestions from your own experiences. It can be hard to know where to even turn first, right? When you're first getting support.
Yes, Madeline, I do. Yes, it is very hard to initially ask for help. It was very hard for me to recognize where I was and knew that I needed help. And with my therapist, we had a plan in place of if it became a crisis, then I would bring myself to CAMH emergency, and that's what I did. And I got to see a psychiatrist there who was incredibly helpful, just was an excellent listener, and he encouraged me to speak to my family doctor. So I did that. And then she had some suggestions that she had learned about at the women's college, and I knew lots of people who worked there. So I went from there and looked into their programming. And I instantly looked at things where I didn't need any sort of referral. I could just refer myself and put my name on a list and get started. And that's what I did. And I really didn't have to wait very long before I was contacted. It was really helpful.
That's awesome. Thank you, Rhonda. Did anyone else? Yeah, Erin, did you want to say a few things?
I was just going to piggyback off of the online resources. So I also really struggled with openly talking about how I was feeling in the beginning of my mental health journey. There is a program called Bounce Back, which is online, and you can self-refer to it. It's mainly geared towards anxiety and depression, but any adult can self-register, and they're sent, I think, 18 booklets that you can do on your own at your own pace, and they also connect you with a therapist. So it's free as well. So if you're not in a financial position to afford therapy, it's a really good thing to look into. And for youth, I also really appreciate, it's called the Be There certificate. And it's just for youth to learn skills, to talk to their friends or their family about how to ask about mental health. So even if you notice a change in your friend, how do you start those conversations? So those are the two things that I always look to: Bounce Back and Be There.
Awesome. Amanda, I want to give you a chance if you have anything to add.
It made me reflect on how I initially got treatment, and that was because I used to write everything down. I would write epic letters to my mother about the woes I was feeling. And she proceeded to take these letters to my family doctor and say, this is not a good thing. But it was really when I was ready to engage in recovery, it was showing up for that first RAP meeting. I felt like a program was less intimidating than drop-in groups. I felt like something you had to register for. It felt more like school to me, felt easier than the drop-in groups. So seeking out something like that where, you know, everybody's starting on the same day, everybody's starting with the same information was helpful for me.
That's great. Thank you, Amanda. I have another one. Actually, one for you, Amanda. So, do you have any tips for people who are afraid or nervous to go back to work or school after taking time off for their wellness? You kind of talked about how you really embraced different courses and, you know, moving forward in your career. I'm just wondering, you know, what would you have to say to people who are coming back to all of that after needing to take time off?
Yeah, return to work is hard. And at times, I would say I was the queen of failed return to works. I tried to go back to my job in emergency medicine 8, 10 times, and it just kept failing. And what they don't tell you with return to works is just because you get the ducks in a row and you go back to work, sometimes you don't know you're not ready till you're in it. And you have to take a step back, go back, get more tools, get more resources, get more support, and then you try again. Nobody told me I could fail at return to work historically, that you can try. Like, I was happy that my team was engaged in wanting me to try to go back to work, and I was very committed to going back to work. But if somebody would have told me at the beginning that we're going to try this and see if you're ready, would have taken some of the pressure off. So when I talk to friends and family who are going through sort of a return to work, I was like, it doesn't have to be successful on the first try. That doesn't mean you failed. That doesn't mean anything about you. It just means you weren't ready. And we didn't know that until we tried.
Yes, that's so important. I think that's so important for a lot of us to hear. That it's okay to, you know, just as you say, to try and fail, and that's part of it, and it doesn't mean that that's the end. Um, That was great. Thank you, Amanda. We do have a question in the Q&A that came in. It sounds like it's just kind of directed to the whole panel in general, so everyone feel free to take a stab at it. So this person is asking, how have you managed to get over the shame of your mental struggles and or your past?
I would love to answer. Honestly, there's no getting over for me, but I know I have the ability to keep moving forward, and that is through it. It's never going to go away for me. I mean, I know the shame is not mine anymore, and I'm very happy to not be carrying it anymore because it's whoever did me harm. I was an innocent little kid, so I know that's not my shame. Um, but yeah, going through has really helped me to know, keep going, and it has not been easy. I am definitely honest about that. It has not been easy, but learning about the mood disorders I do have has really helped me even to just talk about it, and better understand myself, and better in becoming better at understanding myself. um, I'm able to share so much.
Thank you, Rhonda. Anyone else?
I would say I was very lucky. I initially, when I finally got a diagnosis in high school and I felt ready to tell friends, other than one person, everybody's response was, "Why did you wait too long to tell me?" I remember a friend yelling at me on the phone because she was just admitted the year before for an eating disorder, and now she felt like she had someone to talk to. So I was very lucky in my immediate circle was very receptive. I had like within my family it was very open. Um Eventually within my friend group it's very open. Probably to this day it's too open for my very conservative mother. She would prefer bipolar not be an adjective that's used in my name as often as it is. But I was very lucky that I got the positive feedback right away from peers. And that made it easier and has propelled me forward. It's the only reason I'm capable of doing this tonight is because I had that positive feedback initially.
I am thankful that I had similar experiences to Amanda. I had a lot of internalized shame. I felt like I was an island and I was the only person experiencing what was going on. But when I first told one of my best friends that I was depressed, she really understood what I was saying and also had similar feelings. So it was really nice to know that I wasn't alone, and just talking openly helped me break down that shame and that stigma. And just learning that it is so common. And if it was a physical injury or a physical ailment, I wouldn't have the same shame that I do because it has the term mental health associated with it. So just recognizing that you're a whole person, and it doesn't matter if it's a broken arm or depression, you still deserve kindness and you can still treat yourself with that self-compassion that I talked about. That's really what helped me the most, I would say.
Thank you all. We have another question. Someone sharing from their experience as a mother of an adult who's 35 years old and is struggling with substance use disorder and mental health issues. And the mother is asking, how can she, as a supporter, convince him to seek help? So, any words of advice for supporters and loved ones who really want to get their loved one the help that they need, or convince them to reach out for help? Yeah, go ahead, Rhonda.
Thank you. It's been so hard. I can relate to that feeling of watching. I tried very hard to be the example, and it works for some, and it didn't work for others. Every time I've learned something, even, something that's really healthy to eat, or there's an Al-Anon, like one of those meetings for children with adult, like parents who are alcoholics. I would tell, people that I know in my family and my friends about it. But, I really, it took me a long time to accept that people will seek help when they're ready. It's very hard. It was very hard for me to accept that, but I was spending way too much energy and time away from my own mental health to try to get other people to look after theirs. And really, it really affected me. It set me back. There are a lot of resources available, and I think keep forwarding those messages, keep forwarding the resources and available support out there, and maybe one day, hopefully, the person will decide, yeah, okay, it's time for a little help, because what I'm doing right now is not working.
I would also echo the best. When I first got diagnosed, my parents freaked out a little and didn't really know what to do with me because I was just crying all the time. And so they made an appointment with my family doctor to sort of help get an understanding of what I was going through. And his advice to them was just like, keep telling her you love her. Just like, keep telling her you love her, that no matter what, you love her. No matter what, you love her. You cannot fix the depression. You cannot fix the addiction, but you can tell them that you love them. And I was like, my GP wasn't that, I didn't give him credit for being that insightful, but now looking 20 years later, that's actually great advice that he gave my parents, to be like, just reinforce that I was safe with them and that I felt love. And then that was great. There also historically was a Family Matters handout from the MDAO that I used to work in my clinical world before this. So to reach out for your own support, making sure, what is the analogy, that you make sure that your basket is full so that you can give it to someone else, or there's some analogy there that I'm getting wrong, but that you're getting the support you need as a family member, because it is incredibly difficult to watch someone you love engage in behaviors that are not healthy. So that would be my suggestions.
Thanks, Amanda. Yeah, so I'll take the opportunity to mention we have programs at Hope and Me MDAO as well to support family members and supporters. So we have an open family forum, which is a peer support group for family members who are supporting a loved one who's dealing with mental illness. And family members can also call our warm line. They can access one-on-one support. And we actually have a Chaos to Calm program for family members that is coming up in January, I believe. So check that out. If anyone in the audience is interested, that is a recovery program that focuses on boundaries for family members. A lot of great resources. So please feel free to call our phone number for the organization, and our warm line workers can help share those resources and even share more information that you're welcome to share with your loved one. They can contact us as well, whenever they're ready. Did anyone else have anything to add to this question, or should we move on now? All right. So we have another one that has come in. Very interesting. So, and I think this relates to a few things that a lot of you spoke about tonight. So this person is sharing that they recently, within the last few months, received a CPTSD diagnosis, and they are on their ODSP journey. But it sounds like the idea of failing as a perfectionist for them is very scary, and it causes them to give up and stop pushing through. So they're wondering, from your experiences, if anyone has experience with trauma therapy in particular, will this go away? And those that struggle with setbacks and failures causing a block, how do you get past that? Basically, where your brain and the fear of change and failure makes you stop trying. Would anyone like to take a stab at that first?
Sure. Boy, can I relate. I too had an ODSP journey, and I remember at the beginning, the worker I spoke to over the phone was quite, not rude, but abrasive and unsupportive. And then once I sent my paperwork in, she was a completely different person. And I thought, okay, that's one way to do things. Why don't you start with compassion, but it went well. I held in and I held on and was very honest, and it went well. And perfectionism. I read a book from the library. I really don't remember what it was called, but it was on perfectionism, and it was incredible. I just borrowed it from the Toronto Public Library many years ago. And I recognized that I was obsessed with perfectionism because I thought somebody would love me if I was perfect. I was a perfect little girl. And as an adult, I mean, I know I'm not perfect, and it's not all going to look perfect, and I'm going to mess up a lot. So I'm easier on myself now, because the recording and constant treadmill of stress on myself to be perfect is just, it's just impossible. It's not reality. That's what I learned for myself. I hope that's helpful.
I experience perfectionism through my obsessive compulsive disorder because it does not allow me to exist in a world where there's doubt. So everything has to be perfect, because I can't tolerate doubt, or what is it called? Like intolerance of uncertainty or something is the word that they use. And I just can't tolerate it. And the only way I got better at it, the only way my OCD got better, is one example is I used to think I was going to burn the house down by leaving the stove on. Very common thing. People check their stove all the time, but I would compulsively check it. My phone is full of pictures of my stove to prove to me that I checked it. So my psychologist told me to, before bed, turn the stove on, let it get as hot as it can, turn it off, don't check it, go to bed, and immediately think of the worst case scenario, which is burn the house down and kill everybody. And you would just have to sit there and live in that anxiety till it peaked and come down. And I had to do that for probably 6 years before the OCD was manageable. So I think, like Rhonda said, the only way to get through perfectionism is through it. Is you just have to learn to tolerate failure. I was not great when I failed return to work 9-10 times at the same job, and having to explain that to colleagues why I'm here Tuesday and not here for another 6 weeks and then try again. But I think for me, the only way was with a very supportive psychologist and powering through, which is not fun, but the end result is nice.
I have also struggled with perfectionism and fear of change. And for me, the biggest thing was just increasing my circle of comfort a little bit at a time. So it got to the point where I struggled to order a cup of coffee without stuttering and feeling anxious and uncomfortable. So sometimes I would just go and I would rehearse my coffee order a couple times in line and then just blurt it out as fast as I could. And over time, ordering a cup of coffee changed to doing a presentation in class and approaching a new person and trying to start a friendship with them. So over time, I just became more comfortable expanding my circle, and then change became less scary. It just became nature to do those things, and it was slow, and it took intentional effort at the beginning to get more comfortable, but just keep trying and pushing your own boundaries. And then eventually you'll just be surprised at how big your boundaries have become. because for myself, they were very limiting. And then now I feel like I can almost approach anyone with confidence. And 10 years ago, I would have crumbled at the thought of standing in a room with 4 people or more. So just little intentional changes every day, and then seeing where that takes you is what I would suggest.
Can I also add that before getting diagnosed, I felt a lot crazier. That's how I felt. And once getting diagnosed, I felt a little afraid. I should say a lot afraid, but I was relieved to finally have a title for what I was feeling and how I was living. And then I love to read, so I just went and read everything I could on PTSD.
Thank you, all three of you. I hope that was helpful for the person that sent in that question. A lot of really good experiences and strategies you all shared. The next question we have is, how do you forgive others and move on? So pretty big question, but from your experiences, yeah, Rhonda, you want to take it away?
I'm always going to have something to say. I just let's talk about it. You know what? I don't forgive anyone. I don't. But I really do forgive myself, because in my head, it was all of my fault. It just wasn't. I was just unlucky. But I don't forgive those people for what they did, and I won't. I wish them well. I hope that they make better choices. But I'd rather put my energy towards myself and towards the other people that they harmed.
It's a really good answer. I feel like I'm in the salon chair with you, Rhonda. Amanda, Erin, do you have anything to add, or a different take on this question?
For me, forgiveness takes the form of having to acknowledge that people are who they are and sort of meet them where they are. So hypothetically, he's never done this, but he could. If my grandfather called me crazy or labeled me something that felt inappropriate to me, I own the term crazy, so I'm allowed to use it. But if my grandfather said it, or if my mom made some comment about it, or maybe my grandfather's a better analogy. He's 90. That's just what he knows. If I showed up wearing a clown outfit at his house, he would have a comment to say about that. And that's just meeting him where he is. There's no need to I can forgive him because I'm no, it's just grandpa being grandpa. He's 90. It's fine. But when it comes to friends and family, I did have a situation with a friend where I was in crisis and she wasn't there for me. And that I have forgiven her. My sister has not, but I have forgiven her. But I had to reassess what our relationship looked like. And she knows that she went from one of the top 5 people in my list that I would call in an emergency to not being on that list, because there was a moment where you needed to show up for me and you didn't. So I can't put you on that list. I forgive her. I've moved on. We still have a great relationship. She's just not on that top 5 people to call in an emergency list. So I think you can, for me, I can forgive, but I also can reassess that relationship and say, maybe I need to own a part of that relationship back and you don't get 100% of me anymore.
That was great. Thanks, Amanda. Really helpful examples too, how you kind of walked through that experience. Erin, did you have anything to add on this with the topic of forgiveness?
Not especially. I would just say that I try to start, like Amanda said, meeting people where they're at and recognizing that I bring something to every interaction too. And so I might say something out of turn, and just being a constant learner so that I can forgive myself and forgive others, recognizing that I still have room to grow and that I'll probably have to forgive and be forgiven at some point in life, and starting with myself.
Thanks. Okay, the next question is directed at Rhonda. So, Rhonda, do you have any strategies towards self-forgiveness? This person is sharing that they too are a survivor of childhood abuse, and they experience a lot of guilt and shame, uh, and that they hold both for their abuser and the abuse that they feel or was told that they caused towards their own sister. Um, so, yeah, Rhonda, do you have any strategies to share with that?
Absolutely. First, let me say, not your fault. Never, ever was your fault. I was told the same, and that left me with a lot of guilt and shame also. And then when I met my psychiatrist, she said, like, who's the monster here? Because it's not you. And I was like, what are you, what? I don't understand what you're saying. Because in my head, I was the one, I was the one, I was the monster. And she just repeated that to me, week after week after week. I saw her 7 hours a week for a period of time. And I finally got it. Yeah, I had an unlucky childhood. Um, I made it so that I have a very lucky adulthood. And strategies, oh, strategies. Well, like I said in my speech, I would always say to myself, one day this isn't going to be my day, and I can decide who and what is in my day. And finally accepting the fact that I am an adult and I actually have choice, because I never gave myself the choice before, and a lot of stuff was just happening. Was very powerful and very empowering, and it helped me to accept, I definitely have needs, and I need to put some supports in place so I can keep moving forward. Just like, what do I need? How am I doing? What do I need? And what can I do to keep moving forward? But the shame and guilt, they're not mine, and they're not yours either.
Thanks, Rhonda. I have a question for Erin. I'm curious, Erin, what has helped you the most in understanding and managing your anxiety? You shared a bit about your journey, learning more, kind of building awareness around those negative thoughts and how anxiety was impacting you. And you mentioned that great phone message system strategy. So I'm just curious, what has helped you the most, kind of in understanding and managing it?
I think the big thing that I try to do is recognize when I'm on a downward spiral of my own thoughts or anxieties. So I was constantly trying to imagine every possible scenario, usually the worst case scenario to everything that I did. So I would spend hours ruminating and thinking through everything that I would be doing the next day in what I would consider preparation. Now I recognize as a negative cycle of um, anxiety. So trying to stop those thoughts. And the thing that I do is, many people might be aware of this technique, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 for your senses. So you pick out 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things that you can, I'm sure I'm messing up the senses right now. But I do that practice to kind of reestablish myself in my own body and just stop that thought process that I'm having. And honestly, taking 3 cleansing breaths sometimes is all it takes for you to feel centered and to just act. So trying to stop myself from thinking to the point where I spiral, take some deep breaths and act is what I try to do most often.
Great tips. Thank you for sharing that. So I have another question just for everyone to take a stab at. What was the most impactful thing that a loved one, a family member, or a supporter did for you to help you feel accepted and supported in your journey? Is there something that stands out?
I think it's what I mentioned in my speech when that friend came to laughing like crazy with me. This was not her circle. This was not for her, but she knew that I wouldn't feel comfortable going on my own, but probably needed to go to be exposed to more diversity in the like peer support realm that I was being shown before. So that was a way for her to say, like, I get you, I got you, like, we're ready to go. She almost came to the rap interview with me because I was afraid to go by myself. And then I thought I needed to go by myself, which I was glad no one else brought a buddy. So I'm glad I went on my own. But for her to be like, yeah, let's go get a drink and see what laughing like crazy is like, and see if this is more your scene.
For myself, oh, sorry, Rhonda. Um, I think that I have a lot of friends who do the small checks. We kind of all do it to each other. And so recognizing when someone's mood may have changed or they're saying something that might concern you, and it doesn't have to be a sit-down intervention, but it can just be a small check. How are you feeling today? I've noticed a change in your mood. Do you have anything you want to get off your chest? And that's been really helpful for me and a very big support from my friend group.
I'll say that for me, just being like completely honest, especially at work and with friends, with clientele. And when people say, "How are you?" and I say, "I'm at the bottom of the wave," or I'm, in the middle, or, I'm really, really honest. And that has allowed me to completely, genuinely be myself. Um, I found a job that I completely enjoy and it gives me a lot of joy, but I'm not always okay, and that's okay, and that needs to be accepted whenever somebody is in my space, and if it's not, they're not welcome. You know. I also wanted to say something else about this, and it's left my brain. It happens. Madeline, start your question again.
No worries. You take a moment to see if it comes back. I have one more question that I can ask, and maybe just mentioning to everyone in the audience, if you have something you'd like to ask, maybe type that in, and we can get to that next. But otherwise, it looks like the questions from the audience have have stopped coming in, so we can maybe end on this one. Actually, it's one directly for you, Rhonda. I haven't asked you one yet. Um, so your speech was titled "Carving Out a Life," which I love because as I've come to know you, you strike me as a very creative and artistic person and a hopeful person. So, what keeps you inspired and keeps you moving forward and carving out your life? I know you shared a lot already tonight, but is there something really more than all the rest that keeps you inspired?
I'm sorry you cut out there for a second, but it keeps me inspired, did you say?
Yeah.
Mm. I will say that this towards the end of this year, it's the first time I really feel like that core self of me that came into this world, that I have access to that part of my being, and that is really inspiring for me. The community that I've built at work is inspiring. My pets inspire.
Oh no, I think the connection cut out there a bit, Rhonda. As soon as you said your pets inspire you, that's the last thing we heard, which
Thank
I
you.
can relate to.
I mean, they're just so sweet, right? They just want to love. So And, that's really what I am. I'm a big love bug, love and joy, full of joy. And that was, I was not able to be that way because I felt it was scary and it was unsafe. If people saw me being glowing, then that attracted the wrong attention. But in my adult body, I know that's not the case. Because if something is attracted that I don't want anything to do with, I have the power to disengage. So that inspires me the most, the power I actually have now, that I didn't have before.
Lovely, thank you. And I'll just pause right now for any final thoughts from our audience members that they would like to ask. And to our panel, Amanda, Erin, Rhonda, anything else that you would like to share?
Don't give up. I recognize that, I've had a lot of friends and family members give up on me, but I never gave up on myself. And, if I did, it was like, 30 seconds of, and then, I bounced back.
Lovely. Thank you. So I'm going to put a survey for everyone in the chat. And I just want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. Please do fill out that survey to let us know how you found the webinar. It will be really helpful to have that feedback, and it will assist us in holding future webinars. You'll also receive that survey link in a follow-up email that you receive 24 hours after tonight. So tomorrow you can expect that email with the survey link to come in. And we look forward to hearing your feedback and doing this again. It's always a pleasure. Our Peer Talk volunteers are always here and ready to go for the next one. And I hope everyone has a good night. Take care. And please do stay in touch. You can check out, I'll share our website in the chat again and the information about Hope and Me. So you can check out the Hope and Me website. You can give us a call at our phone warm line. And you can email any inquiries to info@hopeandme.ca and check out our Peer Talk website, where we have recordings of previous webinars posted on that Peer Talk website as well. So that might be something you're interested in. All right. Thank you, everyone. Take care.